What would make Lily Collins, one of Hollywood's calmest, most graceful, most impeccably professional actresses, stand up in the middle of an Amazon MGM Studios set, her jaw clenched, her eyes burning with a fury no one had ever seen from her, and walk straight out the doors without so much as a backward glance? What kind of insult could push someone like Lily, who has spent over a decade navigating the unforgiving film industry with poise and warmth, into leaving a multi-million-dollar production in full view of actors, panicked executives, and a silent, shell-shocked crew? And more importantly, why did it come from Meghan Markle, in what was supposed to be her stunned, triumphant return to acting after years away from Hollywood? Before we even begin this story, ask yourself, what does it take for a woman who almost never loses her composure to finally snap? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Because that is exactly what happened on the set of the upcoming Amazon MGM Studios film Close Personal Friends. And the truth behind that moment has now grown into one of the most explosive behind-the-scenes Hollywood scandals of the year. A single insult, a single sentence, spoken in a very specific tone, loud enough for some people to hear, quiet enough for her team to later deny. And the moment those words left Meghan's mouth, the atmosphere on the set shifted in a way that people described as instant, electric, suffocating, as if everyone felt the air leave the room at the same time. But let's rewind for a moment, because this wasn't just a random clash between two actresses. This wasn't about creative differences, or a tense scene, or simply a bad day. This was deeper, much deeper than that. From the moment Meghan Markle stepped onto that set, eyes followed her. Crew members whispered behind moving equipment. Assistants tightened their shoulders. Producers exchanged glances that revealed everything they were too professional to say out loud. Everyone knew this production was going to be complicated. Everyone knew Meghan carried a spotlight brighter and more controversial than almost any other actress working today. Everyone knew she was making her first major return to acting in years, an opportunity she desperately needed to go well. And everyone knew that pressure creates friction, but nobody expected this much heat on day one. And then there was Lily. Lily Collins, sweet, elegant, disciplined, beloved by fans, adored by coworkers, the human version of a calm morning breeze on a chaotic set. She walked in that morning prepared, focused, cheerful, totally unaware that she was about to be pulled into something she never asked for. She wasn't trying to make headlines. She wasn't trying to cause a scene. She simply came to work. Yet from the moment she greeted Meghan politely and professionally, something already felt strange. Something in Meghan's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Something in her tone was just a touch too sharp. Something in the energy, the body language, the tiny micro-reactions told a much bigger story. And if you're wondering whether this tension was immediate, yes, it was. One crew member said later, off the record, that the two women standing next to each other created the kind of uncomfortable energy that makes you wish you could teleport out of the room. Another described the vibe as two different worlds colliding, one grounded, one unpredictable. And here's the thing. Nobody expected Lily Collins to be the target of anything. If anyone was going to clash with Meghan, people assumed it might be producers or executives, or maybe a director giving notes Meghan didn't want. But Lily? Lily was the last person anyone imagined would become the center of this storm. So what was it about that moment? What was it about that interaction? The answer is both simple and complicated. Simple. Meghan said something she should not have said. Complicated. The context behind that comment, everything Meghan was experiencing, everything the production was dealing with, everything that was bubbling just beneath the surface, turned a small spark into a full-blown explosion. Now before we explore what was actually said, because trust me, we will, let's look at why this moment matters so much right now. Why this story is dominating industry conversations. Why insiders are whispering about close personal friends with the kind of nervous tone usually reserved for productions in crisis. It matters because this film was supposed to be Meghan's comeback vehicle. A carefully curated project. A drama designed to showcase her range. A polished, prestigious Amazon MGM Studios investment. The kind of project Hollywood expected her to treat with absolute seriousness, especially after stepping away from acting for so long. But more importantly, It matters because Lily Collins, of all people, has never walked off a set in anger. Not once. Not on her international shoots for Emily in Paris. Not on her dramatic roles. Not in her early career when she was still proving herself. She is known for being calm, adaptable, easy to work with, a director's dream, a producer's relief. So for Lily to get up and leave, something catastrophic had to happen. Something personal. Something cutting enough to reach a place in her that almost nobody ever gets close to. And that's the key. What Meghan said wasn't just rude. It wasn't just dismissive. It wasn't just competitive. It hit a nerve, one of Lily's deepest ones. And the moment she heard it, something inside her changed. Her expression, her breathing, her posture. Witnesses said her reaction wasn't explosive, it was controlled, but cold. Icy. The kind of cold that comes from genuine hurt, shock, or betrayal. The set didn't erupt into shouting. There wasn't a dramatic screaming match. There wasn't even a raised voice. What happened was somehow even more powerful than all of that. Lily simply turned and walked away. And nobody could stop her. But here's where the story gathers even more intrigue. Lily didn't just walk off because of the insult itself. She walked off because of something else, something nobody on the crew understood until later. Something that added fuel to an already burning fire. Yes, Meghan's words were the spark. But the explosion? That came from something else entirely. Something Lily learned only minutes before the confrontation. Something that shifted her emotional state. Something that made that insult land 10 times harder. And yes, we are going to get into that. But not yet. Because before we reveal what Meghan actually said, before we uncover what message Lily received moments before the blow-up, before we dissect why the entire crew froze like statues, we need to look at the foundation, at the atmosphere, at the tension that had been building from the moment the cameras rolled. We need to understand why Meghan was on edge, why producers looked stressed, why some cast members seemed unusually cautious, why assistants kept whispering, why the director kept pacing, why the vibe was already strange long before Lily walked out. This wasn't a single moment meltdown. This was a chain reaction. And the chain started with Meghan. Now, let's be fair. Returning to acting after so many years away, especially when your public image has been the subject of relentless debate, is no small thing. Meghan had pressure on her shoulders most actresses never experience. Every move she made was being analyzed. Every expression, every gesture, every comment was being watched. Some crew members felt sympathy, believing she carried the weight of years of headlines and public controversy. Others felt frustrated, thinking she came in expecting special treatment. And then there were those who said nothing, but their silence said everything. They were bracing for unpredictability. So imagine all of that. The pressure, the eyes, the expectations, the millions on the line. Then add in the presence of Lily Collins. A respected, globally adored actress with a stellar reputation, a massive fan base, and the kind of effortless charm Meghan has always been compared to in the press. Was there jealousy? Competition? Resentment? Insecurity? Maybe. Maybe not. But what's undeniable is that Meghan approached Lily with a tone that didn't feel friendly, didn't feel warm, didn't feel collaborative. And from that moment forward, the day took a direction nobody could stop. The irony? When Lily walked in, she had no idea she was entering a situation already simmering. She was just doing her job. But sometimes, the wrong comment hits the wrong person at the wrong time, and everything falls apart. And that brings us to the heart of the mystery. Because what Meghan said wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip. It was targeted, specific, and laced with a tone Lily had no choice but to respond to, even if her response came in the form of silence and a swift exit. After years away from the cameras, what would it really take for Meghan Markle to reclaim her place in Hollywood? Could she navigate the intense scrutiny, the whispers, and the expectations without stumbling? Or was this return always going to be a high-wire act, with no safety net beneath her? From the moment Meghan agreed to star in Close Personal Friends, insiders knew this would be different. This wasn't just another role, another audition, or another red carpet appearance. This was a comeback story, highly orchestrated, and every detail mattered. Every step she took would be scrutinized, not just by fans or critics, but by millions watching the intersections of fame, power, and media narrative. Imagine walking onto a set where the cameras are capturing your every move, where every assistant, producer, and co-star is silently analyzing your demeanor, and where one misstep could be magnified into a headline. That was Meghan's world on her first day back. The pressure began before she even set foot on the stage. Costume fittings, script rehearsals, and private coaching sessions filled her calendar. Makeup, wardrobe, body language coaches, dialogue coaches, all were part of the orchestration. But even with meticulous preparation, nothing could shield her from the undercurrents of tension that simmered beneath the polished set. Hollywood is a world where ego and reputation collide, and being Meghan Markle meant her every interaction carried weight far beyond the scene being filmed. Sources reveal that early rehearsals were tense. Crew members noticed her intensity, sometimes bordering on imperious, and her exacting standards could ruffle even seasoned assistants. But there was another side too, moments where Meghan appeared vulnerable, almost human in a way the public rarely saw. Long pauses, subtle sighs, moments of doubt. These glimpses reminded people that even those who seem untouchable wrestle with fear, doubt, and the weight of expectation. And then there was Lily Collins. Professionals with such precise craft are both an asset and, sometimes, a flashpoint. Lily had her own rituals, her own preparation, her own way of commanding a scene with a blend of charm and discipline. When two such forces coexist in one space, there's bound to be friction. Early interactions were polite, even cordial, but observant crew members picked up on subtle cues, side glances, measured tones, and micro-expressions that hinted at underlying tension. The first real spark reportedly came during a read-through of one of the film's most emotionally charged scenes. Meghan, delivering lines with her characteristic poise, inadvertently, or perhaps intentionally, commented on Lily's timing, phrasing, or perhaps even her interpretation of the character. It was a comment that could have been taken in jest, but the delivery carried an edge. Lily, known for her attention to detail and pride in her craft, bristled. In a moment that would later be replayed in countless social media threads and insider leaks, she paused, assessing whether to respond immediately or wait. The emotional beat here is crucial. What could have been a minor misunderstanding escalated because both women were operating under immense pressure. Meghan's history of public scrutiny, combined with Lily's career-defining performance standards, meant that even small slights became amplified. The tension wasn't just about words. It was about power, respect, and the invisible hierarchies that govern high-profile productions. Crew members described the atmosphere as a powder keg. Every step, every gesture, was charged with potential. Assistants whispered quietly, wondering if the simmering conflict would boil over. Directors and producers exchanged anxious glances, calculating whether to intervene or let the dynamics play out naturally, hoping the creative tension might fuel the performances rather than destroy them. What made this situation unique was that both women were aware of the stakes. Meghan, returning to acting after a hiatus, knew that her reputation was under a microscope. Every choice she made would be dissected. Lily, already respected for her work, understood that her professionalism was her shield, and any public misstep could color perceptions of her talent and reliability. This was no ordinary set. It was a minefield where words, expressions, and gestures carried both personal and professional consequences. Even as rehearsals continued, subtle clashes persisted. Lines of dialogue were argued over. Directions were challenged. Eye contact carried unspoken messages. Insiders say that the crew became almost like spectators, observing a silent battle of wills that unfolded in real time. Some feared that the tension might affect the film itself. After all, chemistry between actors can make or break a scene, but when that chemistry is tainted by conflict, the result can be disastrous. And yet, there were moments of brilliance. Observers noted scenes where Meghan's vulnerability shone through, where her delivery added depth to the narrative, and Lily's reactions complemented the tension perfectly. It was as though the friction between the two women fueled the emotional realism on camera. Directors even admitted that some scenes achieved a raw authenticity precisely because of the real-life tension simmering off camera. But the key turning point, the moment that would ignite a firestorm, came during a rehearsal of a highly personal scene. The cameras were positioned, crew ready, and the set quiet, every person aware that this was a pivotal moment. Meghan, in delivering her lines, made a remark that insiders describe as sharply critical, directed at Lily. It was a comment that went beyond professional critique. It touched on personal pride, professionalism, and reputation. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, the room was not just tense. It was suspended, as if everyone collectively held their breath. Lily's reaction was immediate, though measured at first. Her jaw tightened, her eyes flashed, and then, in a move that would be replayed endlessly in gossip columns and social media, she left the set. Not a subtle exit, but a decisive walkaway. Cameras captured the moment. Crew members watched, shocked. The atmosphere shifted from professional tension to crisis management. Why did this moment escalate so dramatically? It wasn't just the words themselves. It was the context, the pressures of a high-profile production, the history and personality of the two actresses, the expectations of millions watching, and the unspoken rules of Hollywood decorum. This was a clash that combined personal pride, professional stakes, and the raw intensity of performance art under extreme scrutiny. For Meghan, the stakes had never been higher. Returning to Hollywood meant balancing personal ambition, public perception, and creative expression. For Lily, it was about defending personal and professional integrity, asserting boundaries, and navigating a high-pressure environment with poise. And for Amazon MGM Studios, it was a crisis in real time, with the potential for media frenzy, delayed production schedules, and reputational fallout. So what happens next when two strong-willed actresses collide under such intense scrutiny? How do the remaining scenes unfold? How does the production balance creativity with conflict management? These questions set the stage for what is perhaps one of the most dramatic behind-the-scenes incidents Hollywood has seen in recent memory. The story was far from over. The drama on set was just the beginning, and insiders hinted that what would follow, interviews, private meetings, social media reactions, and studio interventions, would change everything. What makes someone walk away from a multi-million-dollar production? Is it pride, principle, or simply reaching the edge of patience? For Lily Collins, that moment on the Amazon MGM Studios set wasn't a random eruption. It was the culmination of years of careful cultivation, discipline, and a steadfast refusal to compromise her professional standards. Lily Collins has never been a star to rely on charm alone. Her rise in Hollywood is a combination of talent, preparation, and strategic career choices. From her early days in indie films to award-nominated performances, she has carefully crafted a persona of professionalism intertwined with relatability. Audiences see poise, critics see precision, and colleagues know that working with Lily requires respect and commitment. Every role is approached with meticulous attention to detail, from script analysis to body language, from tone to timing. For those who know her, Lily's professionalism is almost legendary, a standard she holds herself and others to with unwavering consistency. But what made her the perfect co-star and the perfect storm for conflict with Meghan was precisely that commitment to discipline. On set, Lily's presence is commanding without needing theatrics. She studies scripts late into the night, knows the subtext of every line, and arrives early to every call time. This level of preparation creates expectations for those around her. Directors, producers, and co-stars quickly learn that a moment of carelessness, a flippant comment, or a lack of focus can disrupt the rhythm she carefully builds. Lily doesn't just act. She elevates the scene and expects others to rise to meet it. This dynamic was evident from the earliest days of close personal friends. Insiders recount that while the cast and crew were initially eager to collaborate with Meghan, Lily's exacting standards were subtly shifting the energy on set. It wasn't confrontational at first, just palpable. Observers noticed that minor issues were addressed quietly but firmly by Lily. A misdelivered line or offbeat timing could be corrected with a look or a brief remark, signaling that precision was not negotiable. For some, it was motivating. For others, it was intimidating. And for Meghan, navigating this environment after years away from professional acting proved challenging. Lily's career path also meant that she brought a strong sense of identity to her craft. She's built a reputation not only as an actress, but as a collaborator who values mutual respect. This duality, being both approachable and assertive, creates an interesting tension on sets dominated by larger-than-life personalities. She's known for kindness off camera, but on camera, she demands authenticity. Every gesture, every pause, every reaction must serve the story. Anything less risks compromising the scene. This exacting approach, while a strength, also sets the stage for potential conflict when personalities clash, especially with someone like Meghan, whose presence inherently draws scrutiny. In interviews, Lily has often spoken about the importance of integrity and consistency. She approaches projects with a philosophy that professionalism is non-negotiable and that respect among cast and crew is foundational to success. This mindset, while admirable, has sometimes been misinterpreted as rigidity or aloofness. Yet for those who have worked with her closely, it's a sign of her commitment to craft. On the set of close personal Friends, that commitment became both her shield and, inadvertently, her trigger. The clash with Meghan didn't happen in isolation. Behind the scenes, crew members noticed subtle warning signs, glances exchanged, slight pauses in dialogue delivery, a shift in the tone of casual conversations. These micro-moments, often unnoticed by outsiders, are magnified in high-pressure productions where every second counts and every reaction is observed. Lily's attention to these details is part of her craft. She interprets micro-expressions, reads timing, and anticipates reactions. For Meghan, adjusting to this hyper-aware environment after a hiatus was a challenge, no matter her experience or star power. Adding to the complexity was the psychological landscape of a high-profile set. In Hollywood, power dynamics are rarely overt. They operate through subtle cues, reputations, and the unspoken hierarchy of experience versus influence. Lily, despite not being the biggest name on set, wielded influence through her precision and reliability. Meghan, as the returning star, carried a different type of influence: media attention, fan expectations, and the weight of public persona. When these forms of authority intersect, friction is inevitable. One commands respect through skill and preparation, the other through presence and visibility. Understanding how these forces interact is key to unpacking why the confrontation escalated. Another critical factor was Lily's perception of fairness and professionalism. Sources indicate that she had been subtly observing Meghan's interactions with crew and co-stars, noting moments of disregard for protocol or casual dismissiveness. While these may have seemed minor individually, to someone like Lily, who treats every element of production as vital, they collectively represented a disregard for the collaborative effort required to execute a high-caliber film. By the time Meghan's pointed remark occurred, Lily's tolerance threshold had already been tested. What makes Lily's response fascinating is the deliberate calculation behind it. Walking away from a high-profile set is not merely a moment of anger. It's a decision with ramifications. Leaving affects schedules, draws attention, and forces the production to address an issue that might otherwise have been contained. For Lily, this action wasn't impulsive, it was a measured assertion of boundaries. She knew the stakes: reputational impact, media scrutiny, and internal power dynamics. And yet, she proceeded, signaling that some lines, once crossed, cannot be ignored. Crew members recount the exact moment of the walkout as electric. Time seemed to stretch. Equipment operators froze. Directors gestured for calm. And Lily, poised and composed, exited in a way that communicated authority, dignity, and disapproval simultaneously. The effect on set was immediate. Whispers, speculation, and an abrupt shift in energy. Everything changed in an instant. The public, of course, would later be exposed to fragments of this moment, often stripped of context. Social media commentators debated motives, allegiances, and interpretations of tone. Industry insiders speculated about unseen tensions, prior interactions, and possible power plays. Every detail was magnified because of the high-profile nature of the individuals involved. Lily's career, already carefully managed, now intersected with one of Hollywood's most scrutinized figures in a manner that had the potential to dominate headlines and social chatter for weeks. Yet, even in this conflict, Lily's professionalism remained evident. Sources indicate she did not engage in public disparagement afterward, choosing instead to maintain composure and let actions speak. This restraint is part of what has endeared her to colleagues and fans alike. Her credibility, earned through years of consistent performance and personal integrity, acts as both a shield and a signal. Respect is earned, not demanded. So why did this matter so much on close personal friends? Beyond the immediate drama, the incident highlighted the challenges of high-pressure productions where personality clashes are inevitable. It underscored how preparation, attention to detail, and personal boundaries intersect with public expectation, media scrutiny, and celebrity status. Lily's reaction wasn't simply a personal affront. It was a statement about the professional standards she holds and the environment she expects on set. As we move deeper into the story, consider this. The incident was not a simple exchange of words. It was a collision of reputations, ambitions, and principles. It was the point at which Hollywood craft, personal pride, and celebrity scrutiny all met, and none of them would walk away unchanged. But the story doesn't end with Lily's walkout. Behind the scenes, the ripple effects began immediately, setting the stage for what insiders describe as a series of shocking revelations, tense confrontations, and decisions that would ripple through the entire production. Did you ever notice how the smallest moments can sometimes reveal the largest conflicts? On the set of Close Personal Friends, it wasn't the big blow-up that came first. It was the tiny sparks, the subtle shifts, the whispers between takes that hinted at an impending storm. Before Lily Collins walked out, and before Meghan Markle's sharp words echoed through the studio, there were moments that no one outside that room would have recognized as precursors, but insiders say they were impossible to ignore. From day one, the set was charged with an unusual energy. Both Meghan and Lily arrived with expectations shaped not only by the script, but by their past experiences and reputations. Meghan, returning after a long hiatus from acting, brought with her the weight of global attention. Every glance, every gesture, every line she delivered carried scrutiny from fans, critics, and media outlets. Lily, meanwhile, approached the production with the meticulousness that has become her hallmark. Every detail mattered to her. Timing, delivery, eye contact, and even the smallest inflection. It was in the early days of rehearsal that observers began to notice patterns. A glance lingered a bit too long. A joke was met with silence. A line delivery caused a subtle flinch. Individually, these moments might have been overlooked, but collectively, they painted a picture of an underlying tension. Crew members, accustomed to high-stress sets, described the energy as taut, like a stretched wire ready to snap. The first notable sign came during a table read of the script. Both actresses were seated with the director and other principal cast members. Lines were read aloud, adjustments made on the fly, and notes taken. At first, everything seemed normal. But then, Meghan suggested a minor adjustment to a scene, something seemingly innocuous. Lily's response, calm yet pointed, indicated disagreement. She wasn't dismissive, but she was firm. A subtle clash of approaches emerged. Meghan's instinctive, sometimes improvisational style versus Lily's carefully measured, methodical execution. This initial friction was compounded by the presence of a high-powered crew. Cinematographers, assistant directors, and set designers observed the interplay, some quietly amused, others quietly concerned. The dynamics were unusual because both actresses commanded attention without overtly demanding it. Meghan's star power naturally drew eyes and deference. Lily's mastery of craft and attention to detail created an aura of authority that rivaled any celebrity presence. When these forces intersected, subtle friction became inevitable. Another sign of tension occurred during a blocking session. Directors often rehearse movements and positions repeatedly, testing how actors inhabit space and interact with one another. During one rehearsal, Meghan's placement was slightly off-mark, something she corrected spontaneously, without consulting the blocking notes. Lily, noticing the deviation, adjusted her own position and made a quiet, critical remark about maintaining consistency. It wasn't loud, but the effect was instantaneous. Meghan's eyes narrowed briefly, and a flash of irritation passed across her face. Observers described it as a fleeting moment, but in retrospect, it was a precursor to what would follow. The psychological stakes were high. Both women were aware, implicitly, that their behavior was being cataloged, not just by the crew, but by the cultural eye. Meghan's every action would be scrutinized for narrative potential, media fodder, and fan interpretation. Lily's reputation as a disciplined professional meant that any misstep could be magnified as a breach of etiquette or focus. The set became a crucible where even minor misalignments carried outsized significance. What made these early signs so compelling was the interplay between personality and circumstance. Meghan's confidence, sometimes bordering on defiance, collided with Lily's insistence on precision. What one saw as spontaneity, the other interpreted as disregard. Each subtle gesture, each minor critique, became a symbolic marker in a narrative that neither actress fully controlled. The stage was set for a confrontation that was not merely about lines or performance. It was about power, respect, and personal boundaries. Anecdotes from the crew further illustrate the tension. During a coffee break, Meghan allegedly made a casual joke about a line she thought could be improved, expecting a lighthearted response. Lily, however, corrected her calmly but firmly, pointing out the importance of sticking to the director's vision. The room went quiet. Observers later described it as an almost imperceptible moment, yet in retrospect, it was a crack in the facade. A first glimpse of conflict that would escalate dramatically. These early interactions also revealed contrasts in communication styles. Meghan, accustomed to improvisation and fluidity, relied on instinct and spontaneity. Lily, trained in meticulous preparation, preferred consistency and adherence to established plans. In isolation, either approach is effective. Together, they created friction that was subtle yet potent, invisible to most but glaringly obvious to those attuned to nuance. As rehearsals progressed, tension began to manifest in more overt ways. Lines were delivered with sharper inflection, pauses grew longer, and body language became more deliberate. Observers noted moments where Meghan's gaze lingered a second too long, or where Lily's posture stiffened slightly. Microsignals that communicated discomfort, disagreement, or silent challenge. These moments were the first dominoes in a chain that would culminate in the dramatic walkout. One particularly telling incident involved a minor dispute over props. A small object was accidentally placed incorrectly on the set. Meghan, noticing the error, adjusted it casually. Lily, observing this, remarked, without malice, but with clear precision, that adherence to placement was crucial for continuity. What followed was a brief, tense exchange of looks and subtle gestures. Crew members reported feeling the room hold its breath. It wasn't just a discussion about a prop. It was a silent battle over authority, attention to detail, and respect for each other's approach. These early signs of tension were compounded by the high-pressure environment of a multi-million-dollar production. Time constraints, expensive equipment, and a complex shooting schedule meant that even minor conflicts could have cascading effects. Every delay, hesitation, or disagreement carried consequences. Not just for the scene being filmed, but for the production's budget, timeline, and morale. The stakes amplified the impact of even the smallest signs of discord. Fans and media would later dissect these moments, often unaware of the nuances. Clips of rehearsals, leaked comments, and observer accounts painted the early tension as either playful banter or significant discord, depending on interpretation. What is clear, according to insiders, is that these early interactions were anything but inconsequential. They were the subtle undercurrents that made the later confrontation both inevitable and explosive. And yet, for all the tension, there was an element of performance even in these small interactions. Both actresses were acutely aware of public perception, and every reaction had to be measured. Meghan could not openly challenge Lily without risking narrative fallout. Lily, equally conscious of optics, could not openly reprimand Meghan without inviting scrutiny. The result was a series of subtle tests, unspoken challenges, and moments of silent negotiation, each carrying emotional weight and contributing to the growing atmosphere of anticipation and unease. By the end of these early rehearsals, it was clear to anyone paying attention that something was brewing. The subtle signs, looks, gestures, microreactions, and minor disputes formed a tapestry of tension that hinted at the coming confrontation. Crew members, directors, and observers could feel it. It was like static before a storm, the kind of energy that precedes an event so dramatic that no one would forget it. But none of these early sparks prepared the cast, crew, or production team for what would occur when that simmering tension finally boiled over. The moment of confrontation, the insult, and the resulting walkout were the culmination of these subtle signals, magnified by high stakes, reputational pressures, and the intersection of two strong personalities. And what happened during that confrontation, the words exchanged, the reactions, and the immediate fallout, would set off a chain reaction that reverberated throughout the production, Hollywood gossip circuits, and social media alike. The first signs of tension were only the beginning. What followed would shock everyone and change the dynamic of the set forever. Have you ever witnessed a moment so electric that time seems to pause? On the set of Close Personal Friends, that moment came when Meghan Markle's words cut through the rehearsals, the cameras, and the carefully controlled environment of Amazon MGM Studios. One comment, delivered with precision and veiled intention, changed everything, and would leave Lily Collins stunned, crew members whispering, and the entire production on edge. According to insiders, the incident occurred during a pivotal rehearsal for an emotionally charged scene. The scene itself required vulnerability, focus, and seamless collaboration between the lead actresses. Every word mattered, every glance counted, and the director was already on edge from the complexity of the shoot. Then came the line. Meghan, in what some describe as an offhand comment, delivered a remark directed at Lily. On its surface, it could have been interpreted as playful, even trivial. But the delivery carried a sting, a subtle but unmistakable edge that pierced beyond the professional. The content of the remark is described differently by multiple sources, but the consensus is clear. It was personal, pointed, and intentionally cutting. In a room where respect and professionalism were paramount, the words landed like a blow. Lily's reaction was immediate, and even those not attuned to the nuances of performance could sense the shift. The air thickened. Crew members felt it, the director felt it, and the assistants, normally the invisible backbone of the production, froze in the sudden tension. To understand the impact, consider the dynamics at play. Meghan was returning to acting under intense scrutiny. Every word, gesture, and facial expression was analyzed not only by the crew but by the public via leaks, social media speculation, and paparazzi reports. Lily, meanwhile, had cultivated a reputation as a disciplined professional who demanded excellence while maintaining composure. When Meghan's remark crossed a boundary, it wasn't just about the comment. It was about the implicit challenge to authority, professionalism, and respect. Observers report that Lily's eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened, and her entire body language shifted. For a brief moment, she held back, measuring whether to respond verbally or let the tension simmer. But in that instant, the room collectively sensed that a line had been crossed, one that could no longer be ignored or smoothed over. Every crew member instinctively recognized the gravity of the moment. Even the director, attempting to maintain control, knew that this confrontation would have consequences far beyond the immediate scene. The emotional intensity was palpable. Some describe it as a slow-motion sequence, where every micro-expression carried weight. Meghan's confidence seemed to amplify the sting, as if she understood the effect her words had and wielded them deliberately. Lily's composure, normally a shield, began to crack under the pressure of simultaneous insult and expectation. The tension was compounded by the presence of cameras, expensive equipment, and the knowledge that any escalation would be visible to production executives and potentially the wider world. Adding to the complexity, other cast members were caught in the middle. Some were unsure whether to intervene, fearing misinterpretation. Others, seasoned in handling on-set conflict, held their distance, recognizing that this was a personal confrontation that needed resolution without interference. Crew members whispered among themselves, noting the sharpness of the comment, the intensity of Lily's gaze, and the silent power struggle unfolding before them. It wasn't merely a clash of personalities. It was a collision of professional philosophies. Meghan's instinctive approach, blending spontaneity with charisma, ran up against Lily's meticulous, structured methodology. Where one sought flexibility, the other demanded precision. The remark highlighted these differences in a way that made reconciliation in that moment impossible. The subtle insult was not just a fleeting quip. It was a crystallization of underlying tensions that had been simmering since day one of production. Sources indicate that the remark struck at Lily's sense of professional identity. For her, respect on set is non-negotiable, and undermining her craft, even subtly, was unacceptable. The words weren't about the script, the lines, or even the scene itself. They were about authority, expertise, and the implicit understanding of how a collaborative production functions. By crossing this boundary, Meghan triggered a response that was swift, deliberate, and unavoidable. Crew members described the immediate aftermath as electric chaos. Equipment operators paused mid-adjustment, makeup artists froze in place, and directors attempted to mediate, only to realize that this was beyond ordinary dispute resolution. The subtle sparks from earlier rehearsals had now ignited into a blaze that consumed the attention and focus of everyone present. Whispers filled the room. Did she really just say that? How is Lily going to respond? This could derail the scene entirely. Lily's response, when it came, was decisive. She didn't respond verbally at first. She allowed a pregnant pause, a moment that magnified the tension, giving the crew and cameras time to absorb the significance of the insult. Her eyes held Meghan's, communicating a mixture of disbelief, disapproval, and controlled fury. It was a warning, a signal, and a declaration all at once. Those present later recalled the intensity of the gaze as almost physical. It conveyed, without words, that some lines are not meant to be crossed. What makes this moment particularly riveting is how it encapsulates the intersection of personal and professional stakes. Meghan's return to acting was not just a career move. It was a public event, scrutinized by fans, media, and industry insiders alike. Lily's presence, her reaction, and her subsequent actions were a testament to professionalism under pressure. When private tensions become public moments, the ramifications extend far beyond the immediate scene. Reputation, credibility, and perception all hang in the balance. The insult didn't just affect the two actresses, it rippled across the set. Supporting cast members reported a palpable shift in mood, from quiet concentration to tense anticipation. Crew members whispered anxiously, aware that production schedules, budgets, and morale could be disrupted. Directors attempted to refocus attention on technical elements, but the human element, the raw emotion, the clash of egos, the palpable disapproval, was impossible to ignore. And yet, there was an element of irony. The scene they were rehearsing demanded emotional intensity, vulnerability, and conflict. In an unusual twist, the real-life tension added an authenticity to the rehearsal, a rawness that no script or direction could manufacture. Yet authenticity, while valuable artistically, came at a human cost. For Lily, the insult represented a line that could not be tolerated. For Meghan, it was a moment that tested her composure and her ability to navigate both performance and persona under pressure. Finally, in that moment, the choice became clear. Lily could either internalize the insult, risk compromising her professional integrity, or she could act decisively. She chose the latter, setting the stage for what would become an unforgettable confrontation, the walkout that would reverberate throughout the production, the media, and the Hollywood gossip circuit. But before Lily made her exit, the insult itself lingered in the room like a charged cloud, affecting everyone present. It was a defining moment, one that crystallized the underlying tensions of the production into a single, explosive point. The crew, cast, and director all sensed that nothing would be the same after this. And what happened immediately after? How Lily processed it, how Meghan reacted, and how the production team scrambled to manage the fallout would change the atmosphere of the set forever. The insult had ignited the storm, and no one, not even those who had been there since day one, could predict just how far the storm would rage. Have you ever seen someone take a stand so decisively that it silences an entire room? That's exactly what happened when Lily Collins walked out of the close Personal Friends set. It wasn't a casual exit. It was a statement, an assertion, a declaration that certain boundaries are non-negotiable, and it sent shockwaves through everyone present. But what drove her to that moment? And what were the immediate consequences for the production, the cast, and the media frenzy that was about to unfold? The room was heavy with tension when Lily finally made her decision. After Meghan Markle's cutting remark, a personal jab veiled in casual tone, the atmosphere shifted from subtle unease to undeniable friction. Crew members, who had been quietly observing the simmering dynamics between the two stars, instantly recognized that something significant was about to happen. The pause between the insult and Lily's reaction stretched into a palpable moment of suspense. Everyone knew that in Hollywood, moments like this rarely end quietly. Lily's decision to leave wasn't impulsive. Sources describe her as taking a deliberate breath, gathering her belongings with calm precision, and standing with a posture that communicated authority, dignity, and disapproval simultaneously. She did not raise her voice. She did not yell or make dramatic gestures. Her exit was controlled, measured, and unmistakable. A clear signal that the line had been crossed and that she would not tolerate it. As she walked through the set, the reactions were instantaneous. Cameras, poised to capture the next scene, recorded the silence. Crew members froze mid-action, equipment operators paused, and directors exchanged urgent glances. It was as if the air itself had thickened. Whispers filled the room, spreading quickly like wildfire. Did she really just walk out? What does this mean for the scene? How will Meghan respond? The entire production felt the shockwave in real time. Observers later described Lily's exit as both professional and commanding. Unlike dramatic on-set confrontations often sensationalized in tabloids, this was not an emotional outburst but a deliberate assertion of boundaries. It was a calculated move that communicated, without words, that disrespect would not be tolerated, regardless of status, fame, or influence. For crew members, it was a moment that combined awe and tension, a lesson in composure and assertiveness under pressure. The immediate impact on production was significant. Directors halted the rehearsal, trying to assess the emotional fallout. Assistant directors scrambled to keep schedules intact, while producers quietly discussed contingency plans. Scenes had to be res-hot, dialogue adjustments reconsidered, and the mood reset before filming could continue. The ripple effect extended beyond the actors directly involved. Supporting cast members sensed the heightened tension and adjusted their own performances, knowing that every expression, pause, and line delivery would now carry additional weight. Yet the shockwave wasn't limited to the studio walls. Word of the walkout leaked almost immediately, and social media buzzed with speculation. Fans of both Meghan and Lily debated who was in the right, interpreting snippets of leaked commentary, observing body language and behind-the-scenes photos, and crafting narratives that quickly went viral. The incident became trending news, with entertainment outlets rushing to provide context, analysis, and, in some cases, sensationalized accounts. Within hours, the story had taken on a life of its own, feeding into broader conversations about celebrity behavior, professional integrity, and the pressures of Hollywood sets. For Meghan, the walkout was a jolt. Sources report that she was momentarily stunned, her confident demeanor flickering as she processed Lily's decision. The insult had been intended to assert authority, perhaps provoke a reaction, but the result, a composed yet forceful exit, threw the dynamics of control off balance. Meghan now faced a new challenge, managing the aftermath while maintaining her composure, public image, and influence on set. Behind the scenes, the crew had to navigate a delicate balance. On one hand, they respected Lily's professionalism and understood the legitimacy of her reaction. On the other, they were acutely aware of the operational consequences, shooting schedules, continuity, and the need to maintain morale across the production. Reports indicate that some crew members were quietly anxious, anticipating potential conflict escalation and the long-term implications of what had just occurred. The intensity of the moment was further amplified by the presence of cameras. Unlike private disputes that remained behind closed doors, this confrontation was captured, observed, and documented by multiple sets of eyes, creating a dual reality, a personal clash between two professionals and a spectacle with public visibility. Every movement, glance, and pause was now part of the narrative being constructed, both on set and off. Interestingly, While the walkout could have been perceived as purely reactionary, insiders emphasized the strategic intelligence behind Lily's decision. She understood the optics, exiting with dignity, maintaining composure, and allowing her actions to communicate a powerful message. By leaving without verbal confrontation, she avoided direct escalation while still asserting authority and boundary. This kind of calculated response is rare, and it reinforced her reputation for professionalism, even amid drama. The walkout also sent a broader message to the industry. In Hollywood, where hierarchy, star power, and ego often dominate interactions, Lily's decision became a quiet manifesto about personal and professional boundaries. It demonstrated that respect is earned and that even the highest profile figures are accountable for their words and actions. Crew members who had witnessed the event reportedly felt a renewed sense of awareness regarding interpersonal dynamics on set, recognizing the importance of boundaries, communication, and accountability. And yet, the walkout was only the beginning of the chain reaction. Following Lily's exit, Meghan faced immediate scrutiny. Not just from colleagues, but from production leadership. Directors and producers had to assess the impact on the day's schedule, decide how to handle reshoots, and manage the emotional fallout among the remaining cast. Discussions behind closed doors were described as urgent and strategic, balancing the need to preserve relationships, maintain filming efficiency, and mitigate potential public relations disasters. The incident also highlighted the intricate interplay between personal dynamics and public perception. Even though the confrontation was initially private, the presence of cameras, crew, and leaks meant that every action carried amplified significance. How would audiences interpret Lily's decision? Would Meghan be perceived as instigating conflict, or would she maintain her position as a confident, assertive professional? These questions quickly became fodder for speculation, commentary, and viral discussion across platforms. Yet within the studio, amidst the whispers, urgent phone calls, and reassessment of filming plans, there was a shared understanding. Hollywood thrives on drama, but professionalism remains essential. Lily's walkout was not a moment of unchecked emotion. It was a deliberate, calculated response that balanced integrity with strategy. Her ability to navigate the situation without losing composure underscored why she is respected among colleagues and fans alike. The broader implications of the incident became clear in the following hours. Production schedules had to be adjusted, sensitive conversations with both actresses occurred behind closed doors, and contingency planning began for potential scenes that might require reshoots or adjustments. Meanwhile, social media amplified the event, turning a moment on set into a worldwide talking point. Fans, journalists, and industry insiders dissected body language, speculated on motives, and debated what the confrontation revealed about Hollywood, gender dynamics, and celebrity power. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the walkout is how it set the stage for what came next. While the immediate shockwave was visible on set, the ripple effects extended far beyond. Relationships between cast members were tested, crew dynamics shifted subtly, and media narratives began to take shape. The tension that had quietly simmered from day one now became a focal point, driving both on-set interactions and public fascination. And while many assumed the incident might settle after a brief pause, insiders hinted that the drama was far from over. Behind-the-scenes conversations, private negotiations, and subtle power plays were already in motion. The walkout was not an isolated event. It was the opening salvo in a series of conflicts, revelations, and maneuvers that would continue to unfold throughout the production. The Hollywood shockwave had only just begun, and the next moves, from both Lily and Meghan, would determine the tone of the production, the media narrative, and the industry's perception of this explosive confrontation. Have you ever wondered what it's really like behind the cameras on a high-profile film set when stars clash? Most people only see the finished scenes, the polished takes, the glitz and glamour. But on the set of Close Personal Friends, after Lily Collins walked out and Meghan Markle's words echoed like a thunderclap, the real story unfolded behind the cameras, where whispers, strategies, and secrets dictated how the production would survive the storm. Immediately following the walkout, the atmosphere among the crew shifted dramatically. Production assistants, usually invisible cogs in the vast machinery of a Hollywood set, suddenly found themselves hyper-aware of every subtle movement, gesture, and reaction. Camera operators hesitated, unsure whether to keep rolling or stop. Sound technicians, sensing the emotional tension in the air, adjusted their microphones carefully, noting the stiffness in body language that had replaced the earlier casual energy of rehearsals. The room was no longer just a set. It was a powder keg of human emotion, reputation, and high stakes. Crew members describe a mixture of awe, anxiety, and disbelief. Awe, because Lily's exit was controlled, dignified, and decisive, leaving a quiet impression of power. Anxiety, because the confrontation had thrown the delicate balance of the set into disarray. Disbelief, because no one expected a single offhand comment to escalate so quickly into a production-altering event. The combination of these reactions created an environment where every next move was scrutinized, every glance potentially significant, and every conversation charged with caution. Producers immediately convened private meetings with department heads. Assistant directors scurried from set to office, attempting to patch together a plan to keep filming on schedule. Makeup and wardrobe teams worked in silence, aware that the emotional fallout could affect performances if left unaddressed. Even caterers and background coordinators reported sensing the tension, noting that the energy on set had shifted from focused collaboration to quiet vigilance. Everyone understood that this was no ordinary disruption. Among the crew, a mix of opinions began to form. Some sympathized with Lily, recognizing her professionalism and the need to assert boundaries. Others were more concerned about the practical implications, rescheduling, reshooting, and the potential for delays. Yet a silent consensus emerged. No matter the opinions, this incident would be remembered long after the cameras stopped rolling. It wasn't merely a disagreement between two actors. It was a lesson in high-pressure human dynamics, one that the crew would study, analyze, and recall for months to come. Insiders also revealed a fascinating layer. Unofficial whispers began circulating about prior tensions that no one had noticed publicly. Certain crew members hinted that subtle miscommunications, unspoken rivalries, and differences in approach had been simmering long before the public insult. From Meghan's tendency to rely on instinctual, improvisational choices to Lily's insistence on preparation and precision, the two stars were navigating an environment where their working styles clashed quietly, building toward an inevitable confrontation. Observing these dynamics, crew members noted the micro-patterns, a shift in posture, a lingering glance, or an abrupt pause in conversation, all signals of simmering discord that would later explode. The hierarchy of the set also played a role in how secrets and reactions were handled. Directors and producers had to balance competing priorities, maintaining artistic integrity, ensuring the cast could work effectively, and protecting the production's schedule and budget. Conversations about the incident often took place in offices, behind closed doors, and via phone calls, away from the set. Some crew members were asked to act as intermediaries, conveying information delicately, while others were instructed to maintain discretion to prevent leaks. The entire ecosystem became a delicate dance of information management, emotion, and strategic decision-making. Interestingly, the presence of cameras and high-profile production elements amplified the stakes. Even crew members who normally remained invisible suddenly understood that any misstep, an overheard comment, a visible reaction, or an inadvertent camera angle, could become a public narrative. The combination of celebrity presence, industry scrutiny, and social media amplification meant that behind-the-scenes decisions were now part of the story, even if the public would never see them directly. Emotional beats ran high among crew members. Some felt frustrated, sensing that an ordinary production day had been hijacked by interpersonal conflict. Others were excited, recognizing that the real-life drama might add a layer of authenticity to the performances they were capturing. A few were anxious, wondering whether the tension would escalate further or disrupt the production entirely. This blend of emotions created an atmosphere that was simultaneously tense and electric, as though everyone knew they were witnessing something historic in the making. Secrets began to surface as well. Some crew members had observed prior interactions between Meghan and Lily that hinted at potential friction, subtle disagreements over scene interpretation, minor conflicts about line delivery, and unspoken challenges regarding professional authority. While these incidents were easily overlooked individually, taken together they formed a pattern, a hidden narrative that explained why the confrontation happened when it did. For the crew who had been quietly noting these patterns, the walkout was both shocking and, in retrospect, inevitable. Even beyond the immediate set, communications with other departments intensified. Studio executives were informed, legal advisors were consulted, and public relations teams began drafting potential responses should details leak. Everyone understood that in today's Hollywood, a single offhand comment and a walkout could spiral into a global media event. The secrets, observations, and internal discussions would need to be managed carefully to prevent further escalation, protect reputations, and maintain momentum on one of Amazon MGM Studios' most high-profile productions. Humor and irony also played a subtle role in crew conversations. Amidst the tension, some whispered jokes about how predictable Hollywood drama could be, how actors with star power sometimes behave like royalty on set, and how even the most meticulous planning cannot account for human unpredictability.